The young king, the crown, crafted from ancient, dull gold and set with a single massive sapphire, felt like a lead weight pressing down on King Kale's 19-year-old skull. It was far heavier than the actual weight of the metal. It was heavy with history, heavy with expectation, and heavy with the immediate crushing problem of an empty treasury. Kale was less a king, and more an heir to a glorious disaster. His father, the late King Alaric, had been a warrior and a builder, but a terrible accountant. He had bankrupted the small independent kingdom of Eldoria with grand, unnecessary wars against peaceful neighbors and colossal unfinished monuments. Now Kale sat on the great basalt throne, his boots barely reaching the marble floor, while the council of elders, 7 grim-faced ancient men in velvet robes, stared at him with undisguised skepticism. "We have explained the situation, Your Majesty," said Lord Tremaine, the chief counselor, his voice dry as parchment. "The tax revenues are non-existent. The roads are crumbling. The granaries are empty, and the debt to the neighboring Republic of Viridia is due in 3 months. If we cannot pay, Eldoria ceases to be a kingdom and becomes a district of Viridia." Kale gripped the arms of the throne until his knuckles turned white. "And your solution, my lords?" "The traditional solution," Lord Tremaine replied, a faint, cruel smile touching his lips. "Raise the taxes on the iron mines of the northern moors. They are the last productive asset we have. It will be painful for the miners, but necessary for the realm." Kale's stomach twisted. The miners of the northern moors were his people. They lived hard lives in the bleak hills, extracting the rare blue-tinged ore that gave Eldoria its only valuable export. Raising their taxes would mean starvation for their families. "No," Kale said firmly. "We will not starve my people to pay a debt incurred by my father's folly. There must be another way." The council exchanged disdainful glances. "There is no other way, Your Majesty," Tremaine insisted. "The coffers are empty. Unless you know of a forgotten chest of gold in the dungeons?" Kale did not, but he knew something the elders had long forgotten: the strength of his own 2 feet. That night, Kale shed the heavy robes and the ridiculous crown. He donned a simple leather tunic, pulled a cap low over his youthful face, and slipped out of the cold, echoing palace. He was not going to the mines. He was going to the heart of the problem. He was going to the free market of Port Eldoria. The weight of the scales? Port Eldoria was a riot of noise, stench, and vibrant life. It was here, along the churning docks, that the kingdom's final, desperate commerce took place. Kale, unrecognized as the king, watched. He saw the fishermen bringing in their meager catches and the farmers selling their dusty grain. He also saw the Republic of Viridia's influence everywhere. Viridian ships dominated the harbor, Viridian currency was the preferred medium of exchange, and Viridian officials, with their polished boots and sharp ledgers, controlled the most lucrative trading stalls. He stopped at a stall, where a farmer was attempting to sell his entire yield of honey to a stout Viridian buyer. "This is excellent honey," the farmer pleaded. "The best in the valley. You offer me 1/10 of what it is worth." The Viridian buyer merely laughed, an oily, unpleasant sound. "It is the market price, old man. Viridia controls the sugar trade. And your king needs our silver to stay in power. Take the coin, or let the honey spoil." The farmer, defeated, took the pitiful payment. Kale realized the elders were wrong. Eldoria didn't just have an empty treasury. It had a broken system. The debt to Viridia was merely a symptom of a deeper cancer. Viridia had seized control of Eldoria's trade and currency, effectively stripping the kingdom of its ability to generate wealth. If he taxed the miners, Viridia would simply raise the price of the goods they sold back to Eldoria. The kingdom was caught in an economic net, and the tax was just a broken twig. Kale returned to the palace with a new resolve. He hadn't found gold, but he had found the truth. The next morning he stood before the council. "I have studied the trade ledgers," Kale announced, pointing to a dusty stack of books. "The debt to Viridia is based on a massive loan, a quarter of which was for the purchase of Viridian steel for the construction of the late king's colossal useless statue. We are paying the debt with the very commodity that impoverished us." Lord Tremaine shifted uncomfortably. "The debt is legal, Your Majesty. It must be paid." "It will be paid," Kale stated, "but not by taxing the poor. We will pay it with what we have in abundance: intellect, ingenuity, and stone." The elders looked utterly bewildered. The unfinished monument. Kale's plan was audacious, foolish, and perhaps the only chance they had. He ordered the construction crews, who were now idle and starving, to leave the useless royal monuments and march into the Grey Mountains. He ordered the miners whose taxes he had refused to raise to halt the dangerous low-yield excavation of blue iron ore and instead focus their efforts on a massive quarrying operation. They were to quarry a colossal amount of the local gray basalt, a stone so hard it was almost impossible to cut, but so durable it lasted 1,000 years. The elders were in uproar. "Basalt? Kale, the cost of cutting that stone is astronomical. And it is worthless. Viridia uses cheap imported sandstone." "Exactly," Kale countered. "We will not sell the stone. We will sell the ability to cut it." Kale commissioned his best, and only, royal engineer, a young woman named Seraphina, to devise a new method for cutting the basalt quickly and cheaply. She proposed a system utilizing high-pressure water jets and abrasive sand, a technology considered experimental and too expensive for normal use. Kale sold the last of his father's silver plate, the one piece of the old king's folly he could bear to part with, to fund Seraphina's initial prototype system. The deadline loomed. The Viridian ambassador, a smug, immaculate man named Valerius, arrived 2 weeks before the payment was due, fully expecting to negotiate the surrender of Eldoria. Valerius watched Kale in the council hall. His eyes narrowed in amusement. "You are making roads, Your Majesty? Repairing bridges? Building granaries? Admirable, but not profitable. The deadline is 2 weeks. Do you have the 2 million Viridian silver pieces?" "We are in the process of generating the payment, Ambassador," Kale said, standing tall. "But I want to offer you a better deal. A contract." Kale led Valerius out of the palace, past the slums, and up the winding mountain road to the quarry. The ambassador gasped. The quarry was a spectacle of organized chaos. The miners, no longer in danger from deep drilling, were operating Seraphina's water jet system. The machinery was loud, dirty, and unbelievably efficient. Giant blocks of the notoriously hard basalt were being sliced with ease and speed. "What is this madness?" Valerius demanded. "You are wasting the kingdom's final resources on a quarry." "No," Kale corrected, a slow smile spreading across his face. "We are creating the foundation of modern commerce. Ambassador, look at your republic. You need roads that last centuries, You need docks that withstand 1,000 storms. You currently build with soft, cheap stone that must be replaced every generation. And Eldoria has the hardest, most durable stone in the known world. And now, we have the only technology that can cut it quickly and affordably. I am not offering to sell you the stone, Ambassador. I am offering to sell you an entire infrastructure upgrade. The royal bargain. Kale laid out his final, desperate gambit. In 2 weeks, I will give you the 2 million silver pieces we owe. You will sign a receipt of payment in full. But in exchange, you will also sign an agreement. Eldoria will be the exclusive supplier of cut basalt, and the sole provider of basalt cutting technology to the Republic of Viridia for 10 years. You need to build your empire, Valerius. We will provide the foundation. Valerius was stunned. He was an economist, not a diplomat. He looked at the perfect, massive blocks of basalt, sliced with the precision of a jeweler. He instantly grasped the enormous economic advantage of a durable, near-indestructible building material. But he was still a Viridian. No, Your Majesty. I do not negotiate under duress. We will take the kingdom in 2 weeks, and then we will take your technology and your stone. You will not, Kale said, his voice hardening with the authority of his bloodline. He pulled a thick parchment from his tunic. This is the royal edict. Tomorrow I will give this to every trading house in Port Eldoria. It reveals the exact coordinates of the basalt quarry and Seraphina's blueprints for the water jet cutting machine. If you do not sign the deal, I will release this information to every rival Republican kingdom on the continent. Valerius went white. Eldoria had no army to speak of, but it had a technological secret that could reshape the economic future of the entire region. If that knowledge was released into the free market, Viridia's century-long supremacy in infrastructure and building would crumble. You would betray your own secret? Valerius sputtered, aghast. I would destroy the value of the stone to save the value of my sovereignty, Kale stated simply. I am king. My first duty is to Eldoria's survival, not its wealth. You sign the contract, and you get the stone and the secret exclusively. You refuse, and you get nothing but a bankrupt, worthless piece of land. Valerius, trembling with fury and calculation, stared at the young man on the hill. Kale was a fool, perhaps, but a terrifyingly principled fool, who was willing to destroy his most valuable asset to achieve his goal. He extended his hand. You have a deal, Your Majesty, but where will you get the 2 million silver pieces in 2 weeks? Kale smiled, finally revealing the answer. The miners, Ambassador. I never raised their taxes, but I asked for their help. They have been working overtime, selling their excess quarried basalt to the trading nations that visit Port Eldoria at a fair price. Now that the world knows the stone is available, they have raised the 2 million pieces needed to pay the debt. My people saved my kingdom. Now, I will save their future. Valerius signed the contract. The weight of the crown. 2 weeks later, the debt was paid in full. The Council of Elders, who had spent the last fortnight nervously trying to guess Kale's strategy, were speechless. Lord Tremaine approached Kale in the throne room, holding the receipts of payment. You have done the impossible, Your Majesty. You saved the kingdom without taxing the poor. You are truly your father's son. No, Kale corrected, finally removing the heavy crown and placing it on the table. I am not. My father built monuments to his own ego. I build infrastructure for my people." Kale took a deep breath and looked at the astonished elders. "The business with Viridia is done. Now the real work begins. We have wealth flowing into the treasury from the basalt trade, and we have a new technology that gives us leverage. We will use it to rebuild Eldoria." He laid out his final edict. 1. Investment in knowledge. All new revenue from the Viridia contract would go directly into funding an institute for practical engineering headed by Serafina, focused on innovative local solutions. 2. Infrastructure priority. The basalt and the new cutting technology would be used first to rebuild all roads and construct new, durable storage facilities for grain and water within Eldoria itself. 3. Local commerce. The monarchy would use its leverage to force fair trade practices in Port Eldoria, breaking the Viridian monopoly and ensuring local farmers and fishermen received fair prices for their goods. He walked to the window, looking out over his city. It was still old, still dusty, but now, a subtle, powerful hum of activity flowed from the port and the mountain. He picked up the crown. It no longer felt like a lead weight of history. It felt like a simple, heavy tool, a symbol of the relentless work he had just begun. He put the crown back on, feeling it sit straight and firm. The young king had faced a crisis of economics, but he had solved it with a crisis of character, demonstrating that true royal power does not come from hoarding gold, but from the simple, profound act of valuing your people over your pride.